Committee to order at 6 o'clock on Tuesday, February 6th. Our first action is to pledge of allegiance. Chief LaRoche, would you lead us in the pledge? We're all looking at you, Janet.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our next order of business is to hold a public hearing to present the proposed 2024 Bristol town budget to the public, which will be presented at the town meeting in March. It's not on the agenda, just real quick, I will tell you. So my name is Paul Regan, I'm the current chair of the Budget Committee. We have 5 of the 7 Budget Committee members in the room tonight, and 2 of our members couldn't be here. We're a 7-member board, so this is the Budget Committee. These are our town department heads. So if we have specific questions about the operation of the town for any of the departments, we have our experts here to help us answer any questions you guys might have. The main purpose of this is to benefit you guys, so we'll go through things and answer any questions, provide any information, and listen to any comments that you might have. Okay? So I think that everyone in the public has a handout of the budget for the proposal that's going on. We typically what we do is we go through section by section, but I want to just take a minute to tell you the bottom line number for what is labeled general fund operations and debt service and sewer and water enterprise funds. That's the number that's going to appear in warrant article 9, which I would call the budget warrant article at town meeting, is $9,145,288.19. So that's made up of all those things. So general fund operations is like running all the town departments. Debt service is our payments on bonds that we've sold in the past in order to do large capital projects. And then water and sewer enterprise funds, the way the town works and the way the law works is that our water and sewer departments are considered financially independent. So they're part of the town, but they have to be run as separate businesses. So they have kind of their own books, but for voter approval, they get rolled up into this number and they'll be approved as part of warrant this year. The number changes year to year. This year, I believe it's going to be warrant article 9. So there's questions, please feel free. We're pretty informal here. If there's any questions, feel free to speak up at any time. At this point, I'll go back up to the top of the budget to the first section, and we'll just go through real quick. So I don't know if you guys, but as part of the general fund operations, that's really broken down into 4 sections. There's public services, there's public works, there's general government, and there's public safety. So within the general government section, there's a section on the executive. So all of these budget sections, all of these departments have 4-digit numbers. So if you look on your spreadsheet, the first section is section 4130, which is the executive, which is, and simplify it and say it's the town administrator, kind of the executive operation of the town. And they
along with select board.
Along with select board, yes. Thank you, Charlie. And you can go through line by line at this point. So that amount proposed for 2024 is $190,456.03. If we go through every single line in every single department, you won't get any sleep tonight. So I don't generally do that. What I really want to do is, I'll stall for a couple of minutes if you want to take looking at things. But if you have any questions, we want to answer anything you might have questions about.
And in this particular section, the biggest thing is that a position that was funded out of the executive budget has been shifted to another part of the budget, and we'll see that later on. So a reconfiguring of that position essentially, right?
Yes, you have, so one of your members is having trouble getting in by Zoom,
Oh,
so,
think I know who that might be.
yeah, she just emailed, I'm just waiting for a response, but I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Okay, thank you.
So our two members that aren't here, one is away on a business trip and unavailable, the other is just away, and she was hopefully going to be able to call in by Zoom, so we're trying to facilitate that, so we'll have a sixth committee member assuming she can get in. But that doesn't change what we're doing. So as Charlie said, I think the reason that, thank you Charlie, the reason to bring that up is that it complicates comparing last year's budget to this year's budget. For this department, the number went down, but really the reason it went down is that in a town employee who is still a town employee, who in 2023 was paid out of this section of the budget, in 2024 will be paid out of a different section of the budget. They basically did a little bit of a reorganization.
And this shifting is typical. There are usually one or two positions every year that get moved to one section in general government to another.
So, should I go over the selectmen priorities for their?
No, I would say.
No, okay.
I would say let's do them when we hit that key section.
Okay,
Which
sounds good.
is
Sounds good, yes, I know which section.
Personal administration.
Exactly.
Yep.
So if you come back, if you come up with something later, speak up, we can try to go back, but not hearing any questions, we'll move on to the next section. So the next section is what's called financial administration. It has a 4-digit code of 4140.
Oh.
Did I skip one?
Elections.
I'm sorry. So, thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
So the next section is actually 4140. I got the number right, but it's elections, registration, and vital statistics. And it's really town clerk, tax collector. I still would call it that. That's what it was called last year. One of the things that's going on this year is that the town changed its financial software. So we have a whole new computer system going on, so we're also getting some growing pains. And additionally, our finance director resigned in September of 2023. So the financial director position is empty and we have all new software. It's just a little bit of a hassle for the details, but it doesn't change any of these numbers, so I'll stop crying.
Thank you.
So the election registration and vital statistics is a budget proposed number of $204,599.57. Again, this is, so elections is all of the elections. This year is a heavy year for elections. We have 4 elections. So we have the presidential primary in January that we've already had. We've got the town election in March. We've got the state primary in September, and we've got the general national election, state and federal offices in November.
We still have to count the town meeting too. Just want you to know.
Oh, see?
Oh, because
I forgot
you pay your supervisors during that.
So the point is that if we have to open up the historic town hall, especially in the winter, that is not very well insulated. It costs a lot of money to heat. We have a lot of town workers who have to work on elections. So having 4 elections means we have much higher election expenses than we do in most other years. Registrations, so that's probably the biggest service that an average town resident, I think, would get. They come in here and they pay their taxes, or they register their car, or they buy a beach pass, or they pay their property taxes, and all of that is basically done under town clerk, tax collector, which is Raymond and her department. And then vital statistics, that's something I don't normally think a lot about, but we keep track of how many people are born and how many people are passed on to other births and deaths and marriages and even things like dog licenses.
The most debated line in this entire section was line 810, which is the new equipment line. You can see that last year was budgeted at 500. This year was budgeted at 6,500. We had extensive discussion about that line. That $6,000 increase is for an vote counting machine once the state actually gives the go-ahead of which machine can be purchased. There was debate of whether we remove it from the budget to have that as a separate warrant article. It was decided after a vote to keep it into the budget, or the budget committee.
Oops, my phone's busy, that's probably Janet. So any questions on this section, or should we move on to the next one? I don't know what's going on. Not hearing any questions, I'll move on to financial administration is the next section, which is 4150, and we're proposing an amount for that section of $188,462.06. This is the department that basically manages all the money, keeps all the books, pays all the bills. The department head is actually currently, as I mentioned, is currently empty. Our previous finance director resigned. We haven't replaced that person yet, but I believe the select board has made a decision to go ahead, and so that if it hasn't already been posted, there will be an advertisement and inviting people to apply for that job soon.
And this budget is substantially up because it absorbed the position that was an executive.
Yep.
And for us, this was a difficult section because we were kind of waiting on the select board to see what they wanted to do, whether they wanted to keep finance and human resources together as one position, to separate it, when they were actually going to advertise it. It was a definitely difficult section for us to work with.
Yeah, go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, I just happened to notice on the last line there, the 620, office supplies, that the differential between the select board and the budget committee is apparently due to that line.
Yes.
The budget committee doesn't think there needs to be office supplies?
Do you want me to explain that, Paul?
Yes, go ahead, because go ahead, you can do that one.
So what, with the new software, when we added that line, it zeroed out the budget committee and we didn't realize it. So when they took the vote, we voted on the smaller number and we chose not to go back and amend that at this point. So they'd already taken their vote, it was left off the budget by mistake. We are going to take care of their supplies. We just may take care of it out of a different budget if we need to.
So to answer your, what Christina said was right. There was a mistake made, I think it was because of the new software, but there was a mistake made.
Oh, okay, so the intent is to...
They had originally intended to put $500 in there. They gave us a budget proposal that proposed $0. We approved that section of the budget with a $0 in there. And then we said, for the most part, the different departments aren't completely isolated. If you're a department that's located here in the town hall, I mean, there's a fair amount of sharing. So we basically said we didn't want to go back and add. We were looking for things to cut. We didn't go back and add $500, even though $500 isn't really a huge amount. We just agreed to leave it at $0.
But the intent is they will...
They will get the supplies they need to do their job, yes.
Okay.
Chris, yes. Okay. On a whole different subject, Shannon, we want to make sure that we get your names for
Yes.
the meeting.
We got.
I was going to say, I forgot to, I usually ask. I'm going to say to Shannon, make sure we get your 4 people's names before you leave the room.
I asked in advance.
She's a step ahead of
So
me, as usual.
And I apologize, I do not know the 2 people on the end, so if you do ask questions, we would just need to know your name. But we have the other ones. so.
Okay, thank you. I'm my own worst enemy, I distract myself. Okay, next section is reevaluation of property, which is 4152. So this is being proposed at $154,149.16. This is, we are required by law to keep our appraisals up to date. We have a schedule where every 5 years property is reappraised, but it's an ongoing effort, and there's money in the budget to do that work going forward. So is there anything else I need to?
So the differential on this one apparently is the temporary administrative clerk.
So you're looking at the difference between the select board
Yeah.
recommended number and so what happened was, yes, there's a difference there, and what happened was things changed. So I might not get it exactly right. So the way the budget is put together, the select board decides on priorities. What do we want to do in '24? What are the big projects we want to do? What service? And they say to the department heads, this is what we want you to do in '24. Please draft up a proposed budget for your department. Then those are get assembled, and that turns into the line that says department budget. Then the select board goes over it and changes it. Then in 2 or 3 months later, the budget committee goes over. And what happened is that Janet had said, well, we were hiring a temporary person because we had somebody in the department that was gonna go on maternity leave, and we weren't sure how that was gonna work out, but it worked out in this way where we don't need that. I should let you talk and not speak for you, but I think I got it right, didn't I?
Yes,
Okay.
Joanne Bailey.
Joanne Bailey is our department head for land use and planning, and this section is under her, and she basically said, I've rearranged the people where I don't need that temporary person anymore, you can take that out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? So, I'll move on to the next section. The next section is legal expenses, which is $41.53, and we're proposing $80,000. This is one of those, this is a section where at the beginning of the year, you really don't know what your legal costs are gonna be. So this is our best guess. We don't, if you asked me if I was willing to bet any significant thing on this, I would say no. We don't know if we're gonna need to sue someone. We don't know if someone's gonna need to sue us. But this was the recommendation from administration and what the select board suggested, and we agreed. We left it where it was.
It had been closer to this 80,000 figure that you see here for several years before we did bump it up to that 100,000 number. So that certainly hasn't been 100,000 for a good while. That was a recent increase, and we kind of gone more back to the number it used to be, which I think for a long time it was held at 70,000. Is that right, Les?
70 is correct.
Yeah.
70,000 for a long time?
But then there were also many years that we ended up way over, so
Yeah.
we just don't know, so. To me, this is good news that we're coming in, we're looking in this year, compared to some past years.
Okay, I'll go to the next section, which is personal administration, which is section 4155, and that's a proposed amount of $1,044,480.39. I started to talk about it and said, I don't know if you heard, so this is a big number, and the reason is because the town is proposing to adjust worker salaries. What the select board has told us is that we've drifted down and we're considerably below the average town employee for this state and this towns of this size. And what we're seeing is that town employees, in fact, we just had another one, I think last week, are resigning to go take a job somewhere else where they can make considerably more money. So what the select board has proposed and what we have agreed with them on is that we're not looking to make our town employees rich, but we want to get closer to the 50% mark. We don't, it makes sense. I'll speak for myself. I think the committee agree. I know the committee agrees, but I'm still going to just speak for myself. It makes way more sense to me to pay a reasonable salary to experienced people that are working here that are doing a good job, rather than trying to get skimpy and have them leave to go make more money somewhere else, and now struggle to hire someone in at that low salary and then spend a lot of time training them up so that they know how to do the job. But it costs money to do that. So we spent a lot of time, well, we spent a fair amount of time talking to the select board about what are the priorities for the town and what are you trying to do. And the first two priorities that they have for 2024 is employee retention and, I don't have it in front of me, is it
Getting you,
hiring new people.
hiring new people when we need to, yeah.
Employee retention, succession planning,
I think succession planning was
hiring new
3.
people, and,
Yeah. So there's a real focus here, and so I find it confusing. I'll try to explain it to you as best I can. But so in the budget for pretty much, as far as I know, for every town employee, it doesn't give their name, but it gives their title. So if you know a town employee and you know what their title is, and you know which line they are, you actually can figure out exactly how much they make. I don't think that's great, but it's the way it is. But it shows a number for 2023 and a number for 2024, and people look at that and say, oh, you're planning to give them a raise. Well, 2023 is what they were scheduled to make at the beginning of the year. And then they got a raise in 2023. So what they're proposed to be made in 2024 is their number in 2024. The 2024 raise is all lumped together in personal administration.
All but water and sewer and library
right.
Because
for this budget.
thank you for that clarification, which makes it even more complicated.
Yeah. It's a back though, yeah.
But it's the way it works. I personally struggle with that in trying to analyze this budget and say, you know, am I happy with these numbers and what does this make sense? The other thing that we've talked about is that we all, as town members, elect a select board to be responsible to run the town. So you don't elect a budget committee to run the town. So we try to be careful not to micromanage. I have said, and I think as a committee we agree, it's the department heads and the select board's job to write performance appraisals and make decisions on disciplinary actions and how much of a raise should they get. That's not the budget committee's job. So I am, and I think we are very hesitant to change individual salary line numbers, because it feels to me like we are stepping in and micromanaging the operation of the town, which is not, in my opinion, our job. We pay very smart people to do that. We don't have to help them. And it probably isn't help, right? All right, so.
But we do have situations like police department, for example. Their earlier position's been empty now for 11 months. Are we without a police officer in that position?
Yeah, probably 9 or 10 months.
9 or 10 months. So yeah, we have positions, for example, in the police department that have been empty for 9 or 10 months with essentially no one that's applying that is kind of right for the position that we feel like we can hire. So that's the position we're in out of town, that we are getting short on staff in the police department. We're worried particularly in the fire department, if these kind of increases don't go through, we are going to lose people in that department to other towns.
So it makes for a bottom line number that's more than we would like, but we don't feel comfortable that it's in the long-term interest of the town to reduce it. It's been a tough year for us. Because we all care, just like you do, because you wouldn't show up for this meeting if you didn't care. So thank you. So before I move on, that's actually a pretty big department. Is there any questions? And you don't have to ask just questions about a number. If you got a question about how do things work or what's the philosophy, we'll do our best to answer those types of things too. Okay, not hearing any questions, we'll move on. So the next section is planning board, which is 4191. We're proposing a budget of $9,300. Again, this is part of the whole land use planning under Joanne. I guess what I would say is, if you read the Bristol Buzz, you know that there's lots of notes about we're making an effort to be more. Do you want me to keep going or do you want to speak up? We're making more of an effort to enforce the rules we have. So and we're here to serve. So if you're doing a project on your house, come talk to us. If you don't need a permit, we'll tell you you don't need a permit. If you do need a permit, we'll tell you you need a permit. If you need a permit and you don't ask for it and we find out about it later and we're trying to pay attention, so we're trying to find you, not only are you gonna have to pay for a permit, you're gonna have to pay for a permit plus a penalty. So there's some more money in here to do this, but you don't see it in the budget. There's also an increase in revenue on the revenue side because we're issuing more permits. One of the things that, again, I'm gonna wax philosophical on you again, and if this is to no interest, you guys should just tell me that. But the state law requires us to do what is called gross appropriation. So, for example, if we want to buy a piece of equipment and the state says, I'll pay for half of it. I think you need that piece of equipment, I'll pay you for half of it. So we want to buy a $10,000 piece of equipment and the state is going to give us $5,000. We still have to budget to spend $10,000. Now, we get a line in our revenues that says we're getting $5,000 from the state, but even though we're only spending $5,000 of Bristol money because we're spending money to buy a $10,000 piece of equipment, we have to put $10,000 in the budget. So that's kind of there's other examples here, but we talked to Joanne, it's kind of an example here. She's asking for some more money to have the staff to do the enforcement, but the enforcement is causing us also to get some more revenue, so it's not as bad as it looks.
Thank you.
Okay. I tend to be a little philosophical, you probably figured that already. I mean, one of the things we ask about is, what's the philosophy here? Is this something we're providing as a service? Is this something we're providing that hopefully on a break-even basis? I mean, we'll get into it, we get into it on some other things, are we charging fees that bring in enough money to pay for this optional service that we're providing? And most of the times we get yes, and occasionally we get no, and we say, well, whether we agree or not, that's a decision the select board's made, and that's their decision to make, so that's the way it is. Hey! All right, so any questions on planning board? All right, zoning board, so this is 4192. Zoning board, this is $2,400. This is an important board, but it's not a whole lot of money, so I don't know if you have any questions. I'll stop talking because I'm already talking too much. Okay, the next section is tax map. That's 4193. That's $8,750. I don't know if any of you go online or are comfortable, but the town keeps a tax map on the computer. So you can call it up, you can look at things. We're getting to the point where some of the different departments are actually attaching documents. So if you apply for a building permit, the department actually is attaching that document to the file on your tax map. Maybe more importantly, if your neighbor's doing something, you can look up to see if they got a permit. I don't know all the details. I know that Jeff's been putting things in there to track water and sewer. Where are the pipes? What are we doing? Some of that information. So we're trying to not only are we trying to assemble all that information, I say we, I'm not doing any of that work. No, but the town is trying to get more information assembled in one place that's convenient for all the residents to look at if you have any questions. And this is basically a fee we pay to for the system, for the map system.
Yeah, it's for the update of the, so it's multiple, it's for the update of the maps themselves, and it's also for the kiosks that we use online. But I will let you know, not everything that we put into this kiosk will be available to the public. There are certain things that we wouldn't share to the public that we would put into the system, and what we have is what's called the staff site, because some things obviously you can't.
Right, there are some
Yeah.
private things, I probably oversold that. Not everything that every town department does is public knowledge and is gonna show up. So if it's something that should be kept private, I think what I just heard Christina said, they put it in the section so it's still where they can all find it, but they put it in a way that it's not available to me and you, because we're not supposed to know about it.
We have a really neat ability to be able to mark things to the public or not with this program, so.
So, I'm gonna stop, because I'm selling the mapping system and that's not so much budget, so.
You can sell it if you want.
But so one of the things that I got out of being on the budget committee is I now have a better view on all the services that the town is doing. Actually, just for me personally, it makes me more satisfied that I really am getting some value out of my tax dollars, because when I first moved to town and I didn't know anyone and I just stayed in my house, I'm like, where's all this money going to? All right, now I'm really getting silly philosophical, so we'll stop that. The next section is general government buildings, which is 4194. That's $436,207. This is building maintenance, building repair.
The big change here though is
Yeah, thank you.
in July. Are we still scheduled for July?
Yeah, that's all right.
June, yeah, great news. In June, we hope to open a public safety building, of course, and the heating, custodial services, building maintenance, electricity for that public safety building will start coming out of general government. Versus in the past, you would have found those lines both in the police department and in the fire department. They are coming out of those budgets. They're getting collected together because it's one building in general government. It's a big change here.
And what Charlie said is exactly true, but I guess I would say it doesn't so much change how much we're spending, it's just changing how we're accounting for it. And when we had a separate police department, the maintenance of the building was charged to the police. When we had a separate fire department building, that was charged to the fire department. Now we have a public safety building, we're rolling it into general government like the town hall. It's not just one department.
And one challenging thing here always is we don't have the past bills that we usually look at to get a good figure. We really have to rely on other similar buildings in the state and what they're paying in those electrical and heating costs to come up with these numbers. So this is kind of our best guess for what it's going to be, but who knows?
Correct. Okay. Any questions? I don't want to rush you, but if we go too slow, I'll start talking again.
Please don't.
Next section is cemetery, section 4195, that's $750. So, I believe we have, so I don't believe, we definitely do have a cemetery committee. I believe by state law, the town has to provide a cemetery option to residents. They may, actually, you're one of our cemetery trustees, so I can let you say all of that good stuff, but they do a lot of volunteer work. They're trying to do some repair on some old things, and I know they're gonna do some more work in 2024. If you're, I'll say for Cheryl's benefit, if you're interested in helping, they would love to come on out. I believe they're gonna be working at the Keezer Cemetery, which is on Keezer Road, just below the lake, trying to repair some damaged headstones in the early summer.
And this reduction that the budget committee made was recommended to us by a trustee of the cemetery at the time when they came to present to us.
And there is an open position if anybody would like to run for
It's
resident.
so the cemetery trustees are a 3-member committee. There's currently 2 members, and so
We're down a member.
if you're interested, we have a number. We actually will probably have a budget committee if you really want to go for it. Let's see. The next one is insurance, property liability, which is 4196, which is $70,945.90. That is exactly what it says. That is the insurance, the cost of the insurance for property liability coverage. So I think we all know, I know I am, and I'm pretty sure everyone else is, we're all seeing our personal insurance costs go up. Insurance companies are raising rates, and the town of Bristol is no exception to that. Things are getting more expensive. The next section, which is the last section in general government, is advertising and regional associations, which is $41.97. This is $7,173. This is basically membership fees for two organizations. There's a Lakes Region Planning Council, and there's a New Hampshire Municipal Association. So the town is members of both of those things and gets value from both of those things, but we are required to pay a membership fee to be part of those organizations. So the sections we've just done would total up into what's called general government. That's about $2,400,000 roughly, $2,397,637.73. If there's no questions at this point, we now go into public safety. So that's going to be police and fire. Not hearing any questions. So the next section is the police department. That's section 4210. We're proposing a budget for them of $1,336,091.77. This is one of the larger sections of the department. We spent quite a bit of time talking to the police chief. I would say he's been cooperative. We've tried to find places to cut things. This is another example of where we were. So there's one of the lines in here is a pretty good size. I should find it and not just try to do
You are
this
talking
off
about
memory.
891?
I probably am talking about 891. I'm talking about the radar things, yeah.
Yeah, 891.
So line 891, which is PD grant related expenses. So what the chief has said is that our speed enforcement equipment, our radar equipment is broken and out of date and needs a repair, but that there's a state grant program that will pay for a significant portion of this. So we said, okay, it's roughly $35,000. It's what, 60% grant roughly?
I think 75-25.
So we're gonna pay about a quarter of that. So we're gonna pay $9,000, but we had to put a $35,000 line in there because the state is gonna pay the other 27. We're trying to figure out a way to make it look better, but we didn't, and we said, well, we're not willing to give up, you know. Who wouldn't wanna spend $9,000 to get $36,000 worth of equipment?
And equipment that we need.
And equipment that we need. So that's, go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question on, it actually is to relate to any of the budget items in terms of doing any data analysis. You had mentioned something about checking the costs of previous buildings or something. But for the police department specifically, about a year ago, I happened upon a website called policescorecard.org. I don't know if you're familiar with
Not
that.
familiar, but go ahead.
Nonprofit. And they have data on all the police departments in the United States.
Oh,
And
okay.
they rate them and they compare them, and they do include Bristol, and I think, you know, people would find it interesting to check their website to see how they discuss the finances of Bristol Police Department and the staffing level, and if you could use some data analytics with, you know, your assessment of budget and budgeting.
I think that's interesting. Cheryl, can I ask you to give that site to Shannon, and we'll put it in the minutes, and then we'll have it in a public record. We can.
Well, it's
I got it
police.
Oh, you got it already?
Yeah.
Christina's got it already. Okay.
It's a national organization, and they don't have a lot of data specifically in Bristol, because Bristol apparently doesn't supply data, but they get national and state and county information.
Right.
Things
So
like
it would give us a standard to measure or to evaluate.
Yeah,
against.
particularly, and comparing it to other police departments.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not aware of that, so thank you for bringing that to our attention. So Any questions, any other questions about the police department, or comments or suggestions? I'll move on to the fire department. The fire department is section 4220. So that is a proposal of $1,355,453.04. I'm trying to think. So the fire department is about the same thing. One of the things that we typically talk about with the fire department is the ambulance service, because it's a Bristol ambulance service, but it's a regional service. We service other towns. We have billing agreements with them. I think we have better billing agreements than we had 5 years ago, because the chief's been working to improve those things. One of the things that we talked about is that I'm looking for the billing line in here. 330. So line 4220-330, which is ambulance billing services. And so that's $33,500, and that goes up every year. So at first blush, we're like, why does this go up every year? And the chief says, because it's a percentage of the amount we collect on our bills. So we're collecting more money year after year. The money we collect year after year goes up, so that's actually good news. We're paying them, I don't know, 16% or something, but
6.5.
oh, see, I don't know what I'm talking about. It's 6.5. I told you he's doing a good job. But one of the things that we talk about, and you hear it at town meeting, is people talk about Bristol as the hub, but you know, are we doing services for other towns, and why do we pay for it and they get the benefit? This is an example where I think this is a great example where we want to be cooperative. It does help us. We're going to provide, in my opinion, we're going to provide the ambulance service anyway. Let's spread it over more people, and then the cost per person goes down. But we're also making sure that the contracts are structured properly, such that the other towns are contributing, and everyone who gets service is contributing, and that Bristol isn't paying an unreasonable share of the overall cost of that service.
And the revenues that Bristol has generated for the last several years have been the highest ever. Mm-hmm. And I would say the increases in revenue of the ambulance is one of the reasons why.
Okay?
Is Bristol getting any help from other towns on the safety building and the fire department? The ladder truck and all that stuff?
No.
Can we have your name?
William Olson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So not that I know of. So we definitely are not. I should be careful here because it's not my job. But I'm pretty sure we're not getting any help on the public safety building. That is a Bristol building.
But,
We did. Go ahead.
no,
Did I say something wrong?
no, not at all, go ahead, sorry.
Is the cost, okay, but does that get billed out to those towns when there's a call to a different town?
Not that I know of.
So Ben, would you like to speak to it?
Maybe. So the cost of the building, you know, like obviously the cost of building the building that does not factor into the contracts. Just like fire trucks don't factor into the contracts. Just to touch on that, right? We have a ladder truck. We need a ladder truck in the town of Bristol. Obviously, from time to time, Alexandria, we might bring the ladder truck to for a certain incident. But every time we only have 2 fire engines, which is pretty small when a house is on fire. So we get a tanker truck out of there. We don't have a forestry truck. We use Alexandria's forestry truck. So it, for the most part, in the mutual aid world, pays itself off. But as far as the building operations go, so within the way the contracts are structured, we basically take nearly every line. When you're looking at this, every line of the budget, with a few exceptions, right? We're not charging for maintenance on an engine, so on and so forth. But we charge like 68 to 70%, which is roughly the percentage of EMS calls to those contracts. So as the example would go, obviously all your building operations, electricity, heating oil, building maintenance, that all gets factored in, so a portion of that's refunded of your annual cost. And then on top of that, we have a portion of the building by warrant article statute technically, that goes into a fund for ambulance replacement, and then because that's effectively lost revenue in a way, right? We don't want to make it free for them. That gets factored back into that contract as well. So 100% of that, it's $60,000, then gets billed out. So basically, it's like 45% of that we recapture through what those towns pay.
Okay, that answered, you got what you wanted? Good. Any other questions about the fire department? Okay, so the next section is forestry, which is $42.30. That's $203. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I'd like to move on.
But we used to have a forestry truck. We no longer have a forestry truck. That was the biggest line in this budget. There was $1,000 for that forestry truck that we no longer own.
And I think we just heard the chief say that if we had a forestry incident, we would ask Alexandria or someone to give us a hand, because we've had some, so I thought originally you were asking about the building itself, and I think the building is a Bristol building, but the operation of the, as the chief said, the operation is, we've talked about I've talked about the police and the fire in the committee and even a little bit outside, and it's clear what they've said to me is, yeah, we help other people, but they help us too. If we said we didn't want to help them, if you say you don't want to help them, then when we have a situation and we need help, they're not going to help us. So we would need more people and more equipment to be able to handle all these things. The mutual aid is not a one-way street. It really it costs us something, but it also helps us quite a bit, and it would be a real challenge to operate either department without cooperating with other towns and other departments. I don't think I'm putting words in your mouth. I've heard that from both of you. Okay. So we just did forestry. If there's no questions, then the last one in this section in public safety is emergency management, which is $42.90. That's $1,002. This is, you want to actually, this is your writing manuals?
Yeah, so there's just the kind of standard $1,000 that's in there for training, which we're kind of back on track with post-COVID. All the schools and stuff have opened up, so that'll be positive this year. There's a grant line that still shows $1 in here. We've been working on the hazardous mitigation plan update for a couple years now. That's one of those same grant things, right? We've got a gross appropriate. That would show up if you looked at a budget from a few years back. Once that's done, probably next year or the year after, you'll see the same thing. We'll ask for another $7,500. We'll retain a company to assist us with the emergency operations plan update, and the state will reimburse that money in. So that's mostly what gets paid for out of here. Salary-wise, it's on me, and then when we have emergencies, it's whatever department heads and personnel we bring in to manage that.
Thank you. Any questions?
So just what's $1 for trailer maintenance?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
We don't do a ton of maintenance on the trailer because it doesn't necessarily require it. We have a grant funded trailer. We got it shortly after I started here, so it's 19, 20 years old. But we leave $1 in there largely because if a grant pops up that we can replace a piece of equipment or put some new shelving in, it allows us.
It's sort of like a
functional
placeholder.
area. Yeah.
That's what I was going to tell you. It's a placeholder. If you have a zero, there's only certain things you can do. If you have a number in there, you have a lot more options to do things to modify it. So we have a number of lines in the budget where we put $1 in to leave us options to do things in case something comes up that we want to do. That
work around.
Yeah, you're right. $1 doesn't buy anything. It just keeps the line open. That's what it's for. Okay, so Police, fire, forestry, and emergency management would make up the public safety section. That's police and fire basically, and those total up to about 2.7 million, $2,692,000. So then we move on to another section which is called Public Works. And the first section in that is the highway department. So the highway department, this is the operating budget for the highway department. It's 4311 with $724,815.04. So this is the people and the equipment and the materials and the, well, actually I shouldn't quite say it that way because you've got some other things in the project fund, but this is the operating budget for the highway department.
It is some materials, like
It is some
sand,
materials.
salt come out of this budget.
Right. Mm-hmm. So not hearing any questions about highway. The next section is actually highway project, which is 4312, and that's an amount of $260,541. So this talks about things like drainage projects and resurfacing roads and chip sealing. So these are the bigger things that the highway department does to keep the town roads in as good a shape as they are. So the next section will be street lighting and bridges, 4319, which is $35,500.
$35,001.
Thank you. We took for it. You knew I was going to do that. You told me last meeting.
I have it marked on my sheet.
We're laughing because we took $499 out of the budget last meeting and I forgot about it. Thank you, Charlie.
Yep.
So this is primarily for street lights. Really doesn't affect the budget, but I will tell you, a few years ago, we entered into a contract where we had this street, if I say this wrong, please feel free to speak up, but we hired someone to basically take out the old bulbs that were, I don't know if they were incandescent or something, they were burning a lot of electricity. We put in the LEDs or something like that burn a lot less electricity. We didn't actually have to pay them to do that because we said what we would do is we would keep paying the amount we were paying under the old system, and we would give them the savings for a certain number of years, and then we would own all the equipment and we would keep the savings.
I think we have one more year to go.
No,
Is that right? After this?
Is it one more year after this? Yep.
Yeah.
So if you look, the street lights look a little different than they did 4 years ago because they're now more efficient bulbs, and a lot of them I think have sensors on them where we try to keep track of, I think there's even an effort, it gets dark and they turn on, and then it recognizes that it's after midnight and no one's really out, so they go dimmer. And then shortly before sunrise, people might be getting up, they go bright again, so in case you're out at 5 a.m., and then when the sun comes up, they say, oh, we don't need them, and they turn off. We're trying to be more efficient.
They program specifically.
They are programmable, so there's been, I guess I'll mention it because I think it's a good thing. We're trying to be more efficient and save some electricity and save some money.
Yeah. Starting 2 budgets from now, you'll really see the savings in there.
Okay, so I'll move to the next section, which is 4324, which is solid waste disposal. That's $402,340.49. This is basically the transfer station, the cost of operating that, the cost of trucking away the municipal solid waste, the cost of trucking away the recyclables to the people we're selling them to, the cost of the operators who are there watching after things when you show up to use it.
And
There might even be some equipment in there.
And I would say the big change here is last year we actually did have in the budget to try to hire a lead attendant. That position, which is now actually budgeted under 121, is actually a filled position. The idea being that the select board and Mark, who runs the highway department, really wants someone that had the focus on that department and its functioning. Just trying to make things more efficient and work better.
So far, so good.
So far, so good? Awesome.
And through attrition, there's not more people, if that makes sense.
We're actually still down someone, right, in that department, from where we want to be. I think it is what we've been told.
But I think, I guess what I would say
One,
to
yeah.
clarify to Sean's point of view is that the number of hours that we're hiring people to run the system hasn't significantly changed. So it's not like we had a whole crew of people and we hired another person to manage them. His job is to manage them and also to do some work, and the total amount of labor to do all that work is not significantly different. I think he might have an hour or two a week where he's supposed to do admin stuff, but mostly he pitches in and does what needs to be done.
There was a, I guess the budget committee again on the 365 Household Hazardous Waste Day, the budget committee felt reduce that. And
Correct.
what was that about?
So that was about, we basically let all of the department heads know that we were trying to reduce the size of the spending increase. So we asked them, in the 3 months since you originally put your proposal together, have things changed? Are there any places? So we did make some cuts that maybe not everyone was happy about, but some of these cuts were actually initiated. I think what Mark said was we got a better estimate of the bill from the, is it a state agency or a county?
Lakes Region Planning Commission.
Lakes Region Planning. They gave us a new, an updated bill which had a different number in it, and so Mark said it would be okay to change that number, and we're like, hooray, it's lower, we'll change it. So the next one, which is the last one in Public Works, is called Fire Betterment, which is $43.39, and that's $10,000. I think it's been $10,000 every year for the 5 years that I've been on the Budget Committee. It is basically,
Probably 20 years.
it's probably no longer than that. So it's basically money that is used to maintain and repair
Fire
fire
hydrants.
hydrants. So the people who do the work to repair and maintain the fire hydrants is the water department. The water department by law has to be run as a separate business, so the town pays some money to keep the fire hydrants in good repair.
And this is so that all the burden of essentially maintaining the fire hydrants is on all water customers. It's also on the people of Bristol that do benefit, even though we're not all water customers.
Right, so the other part of that $10,000 is done
Yeah.
in the water, in the water.
Yeah, we spend more than $10,000. The rest of the money comes out of the water department budget, but the town contributes $10,000 towards that expense to keep the hydrants repaired and in good working order.
Because a hydrant, we're talking about $6,000 something, right?
Yeah, so it gets eaten up pretty quick.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, speak up if you have questions, but if you add all those together, highway department operations, highway projects, street lighting, solid waste disposal, and fire betterment, that is what's called Public Works, and that's a little less than $1.5 million, $1,433,000. And then the last section in general operations is what's called Public Services. So the first one in there is Land Use Health Office, that's section 4411. And that's proposed budget to be $135,744.29. I think a lot of this is basically the staff to
Run the department.
run the department and provide all those services. So, any questions? The next one is animal control, which is $44.14. That's all of $200. We don't maintain, Bristol does not maintain a town animal shelter or a pound or anything if there's a stray running around and somebody calls and the police have to wrangle them. We try to do, they try to do the best we can, but if push comes to shove, eventually there's a chance you have to take the dog to a shelter. So there's some money in there to pay a shelter we have a contract
And
with.
we deal with the shelter in Franklin.
No.
No.
Oh, it changed?
Yes.
The
I thought we
contract's
did,
with-
I thought it was up in Enfield or something.
We are contracted with Enfield, that's where we have to go to.
We
Because
used Franklin a couple times, we didn't have, we didn't pay them, we weren't paying them, so they said, no more. We were doing it because it was a quick drive.
But hopefully, if people are following the rules and have a license on the dog, when someone calls and says to the police, there's a dog running around, when they catch them, they read the license and we know who to call and we return the animal to. So we don't use a shelter very often. We hopefully don't want to use a shelter often because not only do we have to pay the shelter in Enfield, but we have to pay someone to drive back and forth to Enfield. We probably pay more for that than we do for anything. So we try to keep it. I shouldn't say we again. I should say that people doing the work try to keep it.
Facebook helps us, it's usually within minutes.
Okay, so next is health agencies and hospitals. So this is section 4415, and this is proposed to be $20,200. So this is non-town departments that provide services to residents of the town that have asked for financial support, which we have traditionally done. So the two organizations in here are Lakes Region Visiting Nurse Association, which absorbed NANA, so they're the successor to NANA, and Pemmy Baker Hospice and Home Health, which is another visiting nurse association that provides services in Bristol.
But focus is particularly on hospice.
Their focus is more on hospice. So they've come in and given presentations to us and said what they want to do. They've asked for, to be honest, they've asked for more money and we've chosen to level fund them because we want to give them something, but we don't want to spend. We were looking for places to cut, not places to add, so we didn't choose to add. I could talk about this for a while and I'm going to not. See, I do have a filter. Are there any questions?
As it says his filter out loud.
But these are the kind of lines that we spend hours on for what their value are. We really do talk about them a lot.
But again, is this based on any kind of a data evaluation? Because Bristol has a lot of older people in it, and it would seem like Lakes Region Visiting Nurse Association would be a valuable, asset for Bristol specifically. And yet you cut it from what the selectmen.
Yeah, so I would say some of the history here.
Huh?
So I'll go into some of the history and I think this will help you out. So Lakes Region Visiting Nurses Association asked for that department number. So this is where that word department is really not a good word for what this is. So their request is $33,400. That request is essentially a historic number that comes from the number that NANA used to ask the town of Bristol. We feel as a budget committee that we used to get quite a bit of service from NANA that's starting to come back from Lakes Region, but it's still certainly not at the level that we were getting and that we were contributing that $33,400 number. I think we hope that Lakes Region continues to invest and improve the services that they're providing to the people of Bristol, and we're kind of waiting to see if that happens.
Do you get a report from them or anything about services provided to Bristol?
We've always asked them to provide information. This year we tried to be a little more specific and we sent them, all of the agencies, specific questions. What services are you providing? What percentage of the services you provide are provided to people in Bristol? What percentage, what is your budget? What percentage of that do you think you spend in Bristol of your revenues? How much are you getting from government federal, state, how much are you getting from all of the towns, of the money from all of the towns, how much of that is from Bristol. We were trying to figure out what's the ratio between, are we paying the same percentage of the income as the same percentage of the benefits we were receiving. And we spent, I don't really want to invite my other committee members, but I will say we have quite of a diverse viewpoint on this. And so I want to make it clear that I'm trying to give you an overview, but if we asked somebody else on this committee, you would get a different flavor of answer.
This is a compromise figure, I think is what it's saying.
So the other thing that happened, and I think I can say this out loud, and obviously I think I can't say it as I'm going to, is that we asked them to come to every meeting. And last year they came with their executive director, and he had an interesting attitude. His attitude was, I'm doing a great job, and our organization has plenty of money, and we can do whatever we want to do. And if you help us, we'll be happy to get it. But if you don't want to help us, it really doesn't matter. We'll do whatever we want to do. And we're, I would say, spectacularly unimpressed by this gentleman. And to the point that I think Lakes Region decided they agreed with us, because in the intervening time they have dismissed him and hired a new person. So we made a significant cut from the 22 to the 23 budget. We talked about the fact that we didn't know how much of it was caused by NANA being absorbed by Lakes Region, and how much of it was caused by we went through COVID and a lot of things you couldn't get together as a group. But we said, 5 years ago when you guys were NANA, you were doing all of these things for Bristol and the residents of Bristol, and now you're not. So we're not comfortable. So we cut them from the 33 to the 16. And then now their new director came in this fall, and I think we all were. I know I was impressed. I think they made a good decision. They righted the ship. They're headed in the right direction. As Charlie said, they're still not delivering all the services that we were getting 6 years ago, but again, that might also not just be because of their management, it also be because of restrictions put on them where they would go to group settings, and group settings got outlawed due to COVID. So they asked to go back to the 33. The select board said, no, we're not comfortable doing that, we recommend 20. And then we said, I say we, that's not right. It was not a unanimous decision on what to do. But the majority of the committee said, I don't know what they exactly are worth, but we're looking for places to cut. We can't afford to do all the things we want to do. We're willing to level fund them. They might deserve an increase, but we don't want to ask the town of Bristol taxpayers to pay that right now. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah, yes.
More than you wanted. All right, so that is health agencies and hospitals. The next section is welfare administration, which is 4441. That's $13,813.31. This is the cost to administer the welfare program. So this is the labor, the staff, any supplies, trainings. This is not to provide anything to a resident. This is for the town to administer the program.
Right.
So that's what that is. And if you have questions, speak up, but I'll quickly go on to the next line, which is labeled welfare services 4445. And that is proposed to be $18,900. This is, so if you look, I assume because you're looking at this all along, is that the request and the select board said $28,900, and the budget committee cut it by $10,000, $18,900. And we basically, I would say two things. One is we looked at the historical spend, what we've been spending on that, and administration of welfare in Bristol is currently, from what I can tell, being done in an excellent manner. And we are, there's an effort to refer people to other resources, that the town's aid is kind of the last stop. But if we can get them to go to TRICAP, if we can get them to talk to Eversource about help with their bill, if we can get them to get heating oil assistance from somewhere else, we try to get them to go to do those other things. So historically, we've budgeted the 28.9 and we've spent way less than that. So there was a proposal saying, well, we're all looking for places to cut. We in the near history, we've never spent this much. We could take 10,000 out of that and still have more than we've traditionally spent. And so we did that. And I will say for myself, I made the comment during that, is that I in some ways I justified in my mind, because I mean, it might put the select board in a tough place, but by law, if town residents require welfare support and we can't find other ways to help them, we are obligated to help them. So if the economy goes to crap and people need a ton of welfare services, we're not going to get to $18,000 and then the welfare office is going to say, go away, I have no money. We're going to provide the services that we have to provide, and if the budget gets overspent, by law, we have to spend it. Now, puts the select board in a tough position, because then they have to figure out how to rearrange the budget to take from drop from Peter to give to Paul. But we were trying to find a way to find places to get the lower numbers. I try to be optimistic. I look at it in a positive way. I have enough confidence that our people who are doing the welfare administration have done such a great job in the past that they will continue to be able to do a great job, and we won't need more than 18,000.
It's really us betting on what the economy is going to do. Our view of the economy, what we think is going to happen the next year, and what we think is needed in this. It's really an estimate of what we think we'll need in those welfare expenses. So.
Speaking as a taxpayer.
Go ahead, you are a taxpayer.
This is actually one of the spots in the budget that has the most exposure. I mean, we literally have I won't say we don't have control, but as Charlie mentioned, if it qualifies and there's no other place that we can send them, we have to pay those things. And it also doesn't 100% necessarily mean town residents, depending on circumstances that come up. Official town residents, I should say. So this is actually one spot. Historically has been a lot higher, and I think is down for two reasons. One, not that we're better at it, but I think that we have more tools at our disposal now than we did 10 years ago to be able to send folks to other places first. But since COVID, there was a lot of places to send those folks for money, and that is drying up quickly. So the only thing that I worry about is that which we already thought was fairly low, based on what we've been able to do over the last several years. That's a spot in the budget that has a lot of exposure. There have been years where you budget maybe it's $50,000 and you don't really spend it. But there have been years when you budget 40 and you spend 80.
And
That's only a comment.
I agree, it doesn't matter whether I like it. That's the way the state law says. But maybe I'm not looking at it right, but I actually took that to make me less worried about cutting it, because I'm not actually cutting benefits for people who drastically need it. I might be causing a budget headache for the town later in 2024, but I'm not imperiling the safety of a resident who needs.
Yeah, I mean, you don't
help.
have any authority to do that anyways. Even if that was zero, we'd still have.
Correct.
Still have to pay it.
Correct. Okay? Any other questions on either welfare administration or welfare services? Yeah, welfare services. Okay, the next section is recreation, which is 4520. That's $122,115. This is basically what the town contributes towards the operation of the community center.
Correct.
We don't have a town recreation department, we have a regional community center, and we and the other towns contribute towards that, and that is the amount that we contribute.
How does that get determined? There's no itemization on this. It's kind of a large figure without an itemization.
Yeah, so this comes with is it 20-page? A 20-page report, essentially from the TTCC, which does get into that information about how they get that 122, 115 figure. And it is to a point based on the town of Bristol use versus the use of the other towns of that service.
And if you're interested, I'm pretty sure that is a public document that we could get to non-committee members, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'll post it too on the website, I just thought of that, so I'll post it, but it's also, I think, in the lobby. If it's not in the lobby, we'll make sure we put copies in the lobby, but I'll post it on the
And the annual report will be at town meeting as well.
Yeah.
Okay, next section is beaches, 4521. That's $30,421. This is basically beach attendants and some supplies and some water testing expenses and
Putting out the swim lines.
putting out the swim lines and things like that. This is, and for both of the town beaches, Avery Cross and Cummings. Any questions? If you've always wanted to be not a lifeguard but a beach attendant, I know the person in charge of this department is looking to hire. The next section is Kelly Park, which is 4522. That's $19,898. This is exactly what it talks about. It's for Kelly Park. So it's for there's money in there for labor, for some seasonal work to keep the thing maintained. There's some money in there for equipment repair and supplies, and there's a big chunk of money in there for creating a master plan, which is something we need to put together on a regular basis for state requirements. You're supposed to have a plan for long-term, what you're trying to accomplish to justify the things you're doing to improvements you're making.
So this is
That line actually is execution
Yeah.
of the.
the execution of the plan.
It should actually.
Thank you, I got it
It
wrong.
should
Thank you.
actually be projects, it shouldn't be
Yeah.
master plan.
Yep, and this is where you see a deviation from both the department recommendation and the select board recommendation on a not unanimous vote. There was a motion made to zero out essentially our contribution to the master plan. The main project that they were hoping to accomplish would have been a path that would run from the parking lot by the tennis court over to where the pavilion is that correct? That would have been the location? And in a vote, it was decided we're looking for savings to not contribute this year to that project.
We will let you know that we did encumber money, in hopes to still be able to accomplish that project and saved it from 2023 into 2024.
Okay. The next section is the library, which is 4550, which is proposed budget of $262,197.46. The library is officially part of the town. It's a little bit unique in that it has its own board of trustees, so they're part of the town, but in some ways they have some autonomy, but they're very cooperative. They are included in here. I use the library a lot. I don't know if you guys do. I consider it the kind of one of the centers of the town. So I don't know. I think it's fairly straightforward. There's the operation of the building. There's all the librarians. There's keeping the building open with electricity and propane. There's books and other materials. There's supplies for.
Several years ago, I had talked to people at the library and was told at that time that the library was independent of the town. And then I saw that the town website started to include the library, and it looked like it was kind of mixing. So what is that all about?
So
The library used to be run as a nonprofit or something.
So the way that I understand it is the library is part of the town, but all of the other, you should be careful, all is a bad word. As far as I know, the other department heads all report
To the select.
to the select board. And our head librarian reports to the library trustees.
There's a separate entity, Friends of the Library.
Yeah, that's
That is
different.
a charitable.
Yeah, that's a nonprofit. I
Yeah.
saw that on the Secretary
Yeah.
of State
Yeah,
website.
but the library is a official department of the town.
Did it change?
But it is, there is differences because of that. Like, for example, early on, we talked about that personnel administration section. Those lines that are for basically every other department besides water and sewer and library are found in this budget. So one of the reasons why you see that 12% something increase in the library is to provide those similar wage adjustments that we are doing across the town.
There's RSAs involved that, I wouldn't say muddy the water, but basically allow certain autonomy based on the library. For instance, their budget gets voted on by all townsfolk at town meeting, but selectmen don't have control. Once that happens, selectmen do not have control of that budget. The library trustees do. So they can give a larger raise or a smaller raise, or they can spend that money throughout their budget, but they're only allowed that amount. So it gets, you're right, it does get a little muddy, but that's, we're operating under state RSA.
Okay, so it is a hybrid kind of situation.
Sort of, yeah. In fact, there's even on RSA that talks about requiring proper funding, but
Yeah.
who decides what? Like schools, who decides what's proper, proper funding.
Okay. Next is patriotic purposes, which is a section 4583, and that is 29,600. And so if you look at that, basically that's community events and
Our coordinator to run
a coordinator
events.
to
To produce
run-
the pamphlet that we get every year that lists like what days, what events happen, this comes out of that budget.
Yeah, I think she's also responsible for booking the acts that are in the summer concert series. But, so she's not a town employee, she's a contractor that we pay to do that work, and she reports to one of the committees, I forget which one.
Kids events, Bristol
Thank
Community
you,
Events.
Bristol Community Events.
Claire?
Yes.
You know more about it than I do.
I'm on the committee.
There you go.
So, if you have any questions,
What
I'll
is
pass it down to someone who really knows the answer.
What is the 890 patriotic purposes? What does that mean?
So that is a line that's not under, that the Community Events Committee doesn't spend, but it's flags for the cemeteries.
Flags for the town properties, so we purchase the flags, the decorating on the building, the flags for different locations, and then the cemetery flags were coming out of here. We have to determine what's gonna happen with that. going forward, but.
All right, next line is Conservation Commission, 4611, which is $1,800. So this is, we have a Conservation Commission and they have asked for some money to help them do things they want. We did make a reduction here, but we can get into that if you're interested. Any questions? Okay. Historic District Commission, section 4612, $550. So this is basically, I think it's for them to,
Supplies, meetings.
supplies and meetings.
Postage, yeah.
So the downtown area is a historic district. You get to the edge of it, you see in a couple of places there are signs. By RSA, since we have a historic district, we have to have a historic district commission. And they spend a little bit of money to do the work they're doing.
We've got a meeting on the 13th.
There you go. Economic Development Committee, section 4651, and they are proposed to be $3,250, which is basically, for the most part, the way they described it is the great majority of this money is to support grant writing so that they go after other funding.
And that 561 line, the Energy Committee line, that's not new. That actually used to be funded under executive section, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's for our essentially membership in this kind of like New Hampshire Energy, I don't know their name,
Clean Energy
consortium.
New Hampshire.
Clean Energy New Hampshire group, which a number of towns now in New Hampshire are a member of to support that work.
All right, so the last section is 4652, which is outside agencies, which is proposed budget of $38,348. This is kind of the match to the home health agencies we talked about before. So these are non-town organizations that provide services to the residents of Bristol who have asked for financial support from the town. And this is something that's been in the budget every year that I've been on the budget committee, which is 4 or 5 years.
And each of these groups not only submit reports to us, respond to the questions we have, they provide financial statements, they come talk to us, we ask them questions. It is a pretty extensive process that they go through to get this donation from the town. Basically, they have to reach a level where we feel like they are providing a worthwhile service that if we had to provide it at the town of Bristol, it would cost us a lot more money to do.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So, are there any questions? All right, so all of those from land use, animal control, welfare, recreation, beaches, Kelly Park, library, all of that would get totaled up into public services, and that total is about $700,000, try again, Paul, $697,000. So what we've covered so far is considered our general operating fund. Basically the cost of running general town services, I'll say. And that's total $7,220,000. I won't worry about the rest of the number. So the majority, not all, but the majority of the services the town provides and the majority of the budget. But there's still some more sections to go and we will continue through that. So the next section is about debt service. So there are 3 lines here. One is for principal payments on bonds. The second one is for interest payments on those same bonds, long-term debt. When I say bonds, I mean we borrowed money for large capital projects, multi-year projects. So the public safety building would be a prime example. You know, we don't put $5 million in one year's budget and say we're gonna build a public safety building. We spread it out over 30 years.
20 years. So that's
But we
better.
spread it out over multiple years. And we've authorized the town and the select board to enter into those negotiations and borrow that money, and now we have to pay it back. So we don't spend a lot of time talking about these because we're not gonna default.
And at one point, there was a warrant article, essentially, that gave the town authorization to take out these bonds, and we are just making sure we're paying them.
So if you look at the detail, they pretty much mirror, because on all of them, you've got principal and interest payments. So the total principal payments, which is line 4711, is $389,329.62. The interest on all those same things, which is 4721, is $191,380.88. And then the third line in there is labeled TAN, and TAN stands for Tax Anticipation Notes. So basically what this is something we hope we're not gonna do, but we wanna have the ability if it's needed. If the town gets into a position where we have a cash flow crunch, our tax bills only go out 2 times a year, so we get from other things, we get revenue all through the year, but the two biggest chunks are the 2 property tax payments. So if for some reason we get, especially if things have kind of a little late, the tax bills are late going out, you have to have, I don't know what it is, 30 days? So by law, from when you send the bill out, you have to give, the deadline can't just be a specific date, it has to be so many days from when you sent the bill out. So if we get to a point where we need cash and we have to spend some money, and we don't have the cash, we would take out basically a short-term loan. So our finance director says, we try to manage things that we don't need to do that. But if we get into a tough situation on a cash flow, we would take out a short-term loan, and the interest on that loan would get charged to this TAN line. So I don't think.
And it's really absolutely only if needed. If we can find any way not to do this, we won't.
So we didn't
And
do
even
it.
then, it's a very small.
We didn't do
Just the
this at all
principle.
last year. We didn't, I don't believe, do it at the year before, but every year the finance director asks for this to be put in, and we put it in because if we needed to do it, it's better to pay a little bit of interest on a short-term loan than it is to default on an obligation. One of the big ones that someone told me about is that we have to pay the county government on a specific date. It doesn't matter whether we've collected the taxes or not. When we collect the taxes, if you look at your bill, we're collecting the taxes for the town of Bristol, for the Newfound Area Regional District, for the state education, and for the county. If we're late in getting the bills out and we haven't collected the money, the county doesn't care that we haven't collected the money. They said, you were supposed to collect the money, send it to us.
In one chunk.
In one chunk.
No flexibility.
All by
Yeah.
December 16th.
At a bad time of year.
So that's debt service. If you have any questions, speak up, and I think I've already killed that, so we can move on.
Yeah.
So the last section is our water and sewer enterprise funds. So this is the water and sewer operation, which is organized and run as it's part of the town, but it's organized and run as a separate standalone business. So your property tax doesn't go to water and sewer because they're standalone. Their revenue all comes from
User fees.
water and sewer user fees. But they are part of the town budget, and we'll go through those.
Except for bond payments on their projects.
If the warrant article specified that.
Right.
Thank you.
And one big thing is that you'll see some positions that are partly funded from sewer and water. The reason being is that there are a number of customers that just get water and don't get the sewer, so that we can adequately kind of place the money in water or sewer buckets. You see that, for example, the superintendent position is 34% paid out of sewer, the rest of that salary line will come from water. So that's coming from the right user fees for
But
sometimes.
But to Charlie's point, there's a water department, well, I shouldn't put it that way, they're not separate, but there's a water operations and an accounting and a sewer that are separate. But the people working there don't just say, I only work on water, I never touch sewer. They do everything that needs to be done. So in most cases, they're split between the two departments. Okay, so the first line is sewer operations. This is a little confusing. All the ones we did before are in general operations, so they actually have a 01 starting number. And if you look, you'll see that the sewer all is 05 and the water is 07. But we mostly just look at the 4-digit number after that first 2 digits. So sewer operations is 05-4326, and that's proposed at $548,185.49. We can look through there's quite a bit of lines for detail in here. If you have any questions, I'm trying to think. I don't think there was anything controversial in here. The big thing in here again is that they're paid out of these so that they don't get their raises out of financial administration. And as town employees, like all the other town employees, we're trying to get them closer to a 50% on a comparative salary scale. So those numbers show up in this budget instead of being lumped into financial administration.
Personal.
Personal. Okay, if you see anything that you want to ask, speak up, we can go back, but not hearing any, I'll move on to the next one. So it's sewer capital projects. So it's 4327, it's $60,000. So you can see that it's, repairing roofs and epoxy coating floors, and SCADA stands for supervisory control and data administration. Data acquisition. So it's basically, we're trying to modernize and instead of having phone systems and it's all electronic, and instead of having to drive out to the wellhead to see what some gauge says, you can now call it up on a computer in the headquarters building. It gives the workers more tools to be more efficient. So I will point out for something like, you look at line 941, it says a 1-ton dump truck, and if you have tried to buy a 1-ton dump truck recently, you would laugh because you would say, $40,000? You can't buy a big truck like that for $40,000. You'd be right, because it's split. There's another $40,000 in the sewer line and the water line. So it's an $80,000 truck, which is unfortunately what you have to pay to buy a truck nowadays. All right, so the next line is sewer surplus. This is 43.28, and this is $1. This again is what we talked about before. It's a placeholder. So the way that these departments work is the great majority of their. So if you're doing a big capital project, you can decide to split it between all town residents and water and sewer. But most things are in water and sewer. So you still have, you want to buy a truck, you want to put in this new control system, you need to have some money saved up for capital spending. So they set a budget and charge fees so that at the end of the year, hopefully there's a surplus left over and they can transfer that from operating surplus into capital savings and long-term capital spending. We don't, at this point, don't want to try to guess what that's going to be. We just put $1 in there as a placeholder to keep the line open, and then Mark and Christina will figure out what the real. What did I say?
Mark. Jeff. Go ahead.
Charlie's quick tonight.
Charlie, I think Charlie likes me to do this because he does it so well correcting me, but I give him lots of opportunities. Jeff is the water and sewer department head, so I misspoke. But Jeff and Christina will get together and figure out what the actual number is and make that right at the end of the year. The beginning of the year, we're not too worried about that. And then the next two lines again are payment, principal interest payment on long-term borrowing taken out for long-term sewer projects. So the principal number is $91,332 and the interest number is $18,253. I'm not gonna bother with cents. And if you look in your detailed line, you can see the specific long-term projects that we borrowed money for that we are now paying back against. Questions? All right, I think we're almost done. Now we're just gonna do the same thing for the water department. So we've got water operations, which is 07-4331, which is a proposed budget of $502,560.43. So other than saying water instead of sewer, it's very similar to the sewer operating that we've already talked about. So I don't think that I don't think there will be any questions. So same type of thing, the next line is water capital projects, which is 07-4332. I think that it's a pretty similar line because most of the projects, I mean, if you go down and look at the facility, it's not all, but the main water and sewer facility over there over by Ayers Island is both water and sewer. So a lot of these projects benefit both. So they split the cost between the two departments and just charge some of the money. Usually it's half and half to sewer and half to water. So the water capital list, project list should be quite similar to the sewer capital project list. And again, there's a line for operating surplus, so water surplus, which is 4333. We just have $1 in there as a placeholder. And at the end of the year, whatever that really is, they'll do that. And again, there's some payments need to be made for long-term borrowing, principal and interest payments on large capital projects that we've authorized, and that's $55,173 for principal and $6,414.18 for interest on the water projects.
Excuse me, sorry.
So if you take all of that, I think I'm done, but if you take all of that, you take all of the operating general fund, roughly 7 million, and the debt service, and water and sewer, and you add all those together, you get $9,145,288. That's the number that is gonna be on warrant article 9, which is the lowest number to be considered at town meeting on March 13th?
17th,
thank you.
Isn't it the 16th?
Yeah.
Sorry. It is.
The Saturday after the
16th.
Saturday after the second Tuesday in March.
Every year.
Every year.
16th.
Yeah, this is the problem.
I don't have a calendar in front of me and I'm too lazy to open one up. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you have questions about? Is there anything else we can do for you? Thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate that. We have to do this by law, but we'd much rather have some people in the audience that we can talk to and answer your questions. Hopefully we will, well, I won't see you on Tuesday at the polling, but hopefully I will see you the following Saturday up at the high school for town meeting, where we will vote on this and other things.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
For the public, can you just explain that you
I was gonna do
also-
that.
Okay,
I
just checking.
was just gonna tell them about what's gonna happen for the rest of the evening. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, yep.
So this ends our public hearing on the budget. There is some additional work that the budget committee has to do. We have to review the estimated revenues for the town and approve them. We need to go through the proposed warrant article, and for the ones that require a recommendation from the budget committee, we have to vote on our recommendation.
We normally do allow a section where they can provide comment to us on warrant articles.
So what I wanted to say is the public hearing for the budget is over. But we are going to continue to meet and have a meeting. It is an open meeting. If you want to stay, you are certainly welcome to. But if you don't want to stay, you are not required to. Yes?
Can I say one thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a petition warrant article, and I just want to apologize. I've never been to a meeting. I do watch the videos sometime.
Okay.
They're slightly more exciting with the wine in your hand at home. It is interesting to see what my tax dollars are going to.
Sure, go ahead.
I put in a petition for a warrant article. It was nothing against Bristol, nothing against Raymond. I love Raymond. 51 towns are doing it in the state of New Hampshire this spring based on their dating. And hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent yearly on election equipment and maintenance because there is ongoing maintenance with them. And I watched the December 19th budget meeting when we were discussing the election and equipment. And there's on the docket to purchase a new machine
Correct.
potentially this year.
Correct.
Yep, that is the line that we did talk about at one point.
4140-810.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, so you are correct.
So my petition was speaking to that.
Okay.
In my petitioning with people, I tried to visit with Republicans and Democrats. It's not a partisan issue for me. It's a taxpayer, like any money they can save to put towards something else. It's more of that to me.
Okay.
So that's why I did it. And like I said, 51 towns are doing the same thing in their towns just to try to save. A lot of people pay way more than we do here for their machines and maintenance.
So the first thing I want to just say to you is that the budget committee is required or allowed, depending on how you look at it, to make a recommendation on warrant articles that have to do with spending. So I was told earlier today that your petition warrant article was submitted, and I talked to Christina, and we have confirmed with the lawyer that it is not about spending, so we are not allowed or are invited to make a recommendation.
Okay.
The select board at their next meeting, which would be next week Thursday, will vote on a recommendation. I'll be at town meeting, so I will hear what you have to say, and I will get a vote as a member of the town, but it's not something that the budget committee has responsibility for, and so I think we all have our own opinion, but as a group, as a committee, we don't, because we're not considered part of our.
Yeah, and we had a whole meeting about this line. I made the particular motion to try to remove the vote counting machine from the budget. And for me, it was about a line I like to draw between what is on the warrant and what's in the budget. I often feel like these one-time spends are better placed in the warrant where we vote on that particular item. And also, I thought this was a particular topic that I felt the town should be very transparent about, so everyone's on the same exact page with what happens as far as vote counting goes. But yeah, if you look back at that meeting, we were split. I think the vote was 4-3, I want to say. I remember back in the past.
I remember it was close, but I don't remember.
We were very close to removing it from the budget and kind of forcing the hand of the select board to put it into the warrant. So, yeah.
So, thank you.
How does that work when you've already got the 6,000 in the budget, which is voted on before the warrant article?
So the budget, when it's approved by the voters in March, authorizes the town to spend the money, but it doesn't obligate the town to spend the money. So if separately you pass a warrant article that says we won't buy this piece of equipment, I assume that the select board would follow that, and we wouldn't buy the equipment, and it would just be unspent money in the budget, which then at the end of the year gets transferred over into the unencumbered, whatever. It shows up as a surplus and eventually goes back to the taxpayers.
And another
I
option.
must have misspoken again, because
No,
Christine is
no, I
gonna.
was just gonna say, the board will also be deciding where that article will be placed into the warrant.
Oh,
so
which
if
number?
Right, which number, they'll have to do that at the next meeting, so.
And another option you have available to you is just like any of us, any member of the town, when we come up to Article 9, you've been saying, when we get to Article 9, anyone can say, as long as it's not below, as long as it's not more than 10% of the total,
Right.
you can recommend to cut money from the budget. You could make a motion to remove, let's say, $6,000 from the budget with the intent that it's removed from this line. And that word intent is very important. You can recommend removing 6,000, but at the end of the day, it's the select board's decision about where that 6,000 is going to come from. Often they're going to go with the intent of that voter and of the body, but they necessarily don't have to.
At their own peril.
At their own peril, absolutely.
And then it's a matter of whether, often petition warrant articles, some are binding, some are not. And so that's, if binding, then we would not be able to spend that. If not binding, the board may choose to spend it or not spend it.
So
At
the-
their own peril.
So the other thing I was gonna mention, I don't know you, so I don't know if you've been to town meeting before. You have. So you know that the way that it works is that you wanna plan ahead, because you have to have your proposed amendment in writing. So you get up and you say, I wanna make an amendment, you give the piece of paper to the moderator, and then you come back to the microphone and talk about it. If you just get up and say, I wanna make an amendment, and you're not prepared, you get a little flummoxed and you have to sit down and write it down. So if you want to make, as Charlie said, anyone can get up and say, I want to propose an amendment to this warrant article, and I propose that we reduce the budget from the $9 million to whatever number, could be higher or lower, whatever you want that to be. The issue, as Charlie said, is by law, a budget is a bottom line number. So we go through all these lines to give us confidence that the number makes sense and it all adds up. But after the budget is approved, the select board has the ability and the authority to say, well, I want to spend more money on this that it wasn't really budgeted, but I also have the ability to take it out of this other department. So we can't micromanage the select board and tell them you can't buy red crayons. You can tell them you have less money, but if they want to say, well, we're willing to give up sunglasses to buy red crayons, they're allowed to do that.
And
It's silly, but I was trying to just...
no, it's great. I like it.
Christina said actually another really important thing. At the end of the day, the select board is going to decide on an order in the warrant of what warrant article goes where. You can also make a motion to move that. So you can make a motion that I want to hear Article 14 before Article 9, or at this point in the meeting. So if you want your petition warrant article to be heard at a certain time, for example, before the town budget, it can be done like that.
I think Janet might have a question.
Okay, Janet?
No questions.
Okay.
Perfect, Janet.
We just heard.
I guess I do have one. I was a little concerned about what the school meeting was about on Saturday, and I called them this morning, and the minutes from that meeting are gonna be posted tomorrow morning by 9 a.m. Is that gonna be taken into consideration for this vote, for the budget?
No.
No.
Because it indicates that they're going up, the school. They're increasing their budget.
So that is true. I went to the school deliberative session. They did amend the budget proposal to add $616,000, but the school district is it affects taxpayers, but it doesn't, it's
You'll
not
be
the
voting on
responsibility of the town of Bristol budget committee.
Be voting on that on voting day.
Yeah, so we get to vote on that on the second Tuesday in March. Okay, so thank you for sharing that. I had heard that, I didn't realize that was you, but I had heard that it had been
Yeah.
submitted, so
Awesome.
good to meet you. Thanks for being active. Anything else? Okay, so feel free to stay, and if
I'll go home and get a glass of
Great
wine.
night.
We should start wine at town meeting, more people would come.
And we'll still be on YouTube. Even after.
Can I also get your first name for the record?
Sure, it's Stephanie Olson.
Okay, thank you.
We show up just to hear both speak.
Well, this is literally the first year in many years he hasn't
If you
shown.
want revenue for this town, you should just like charge admission.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, so let me just go back to the agenda.
Can we take a break? We usually take a break. Right?
Yeah, so why don't we take a break? I think same thing for you guys. If you really are desperate, you can stay, but I would think you're.
Yeah.
Meeting back into order. So we'll continue on with our other, I'll continue on with our other business. So the next item on our agenda is review and vote on first is the proposed 2024 budget. So we need to make a recommendation to the voters at town meeting whether we think that they should approve or reject the proposed budget of, I'll go back to get that number, 9,440,000.
No, 9,144.
Yeah, I knew I was in the wrong thing. 9,140,000. Right.
I would get the warrant at this point.
Yep. Well, my number here is off by $499. Because I'm looking at my spreadsheet, my mistake.
So I can start with the warrant if that's what you want.
I think,
No, it's right here. So I can get right on this piece of paper. $9,144,789.68. Before we call a vote, does anyone want to make any comments and try to sway other people's?
we have to make a motion to recommend.
Oh, thank you, Charlie.
I'll make a motion to recommend Article 9 of
The
the warrant.
proposed 2024 town warrant.
Yep.
I will second that. So we have a motion to approve or to recommend adoption of Article 9 of the town warrant, which is the budget, and the number is $9,144,789.68, which includes debt service and water and sewer. So, now I will again, does anyone, before I call a vote, want to talk to the committee and try to change anyone's opinion or vote?
I just got one thing to say. I've tried every way I could to try to get at some of the things I don't approve of. There's no particular line I can point at and say, that's wrong. All I can say is the bottom line is more than I can afford to support.
I gotcha. Thank you, Walter. Anyone else? Janet, anything you want to say before I call a vote?
Oh, no.
Okay, so since Janet is participating by Zoom, I am going to call a roll call vote so that we're all going to vote individually.
Yep.
I'll start with myself. I'm going to vote for recommending approval. Charlie?
I vote for.
Walter?
I oppose.
Buzz?
4.
Les?
4.
Janet?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it.
So we're taking a vote on our recommendation for approving the budget. So we're voting on whether we're recommending approval or rejection of Article 9, proposed Article 9 of the town warrant, which is the our responsibility, 9 million.
No.
Okay, so we have a vote of 4 votes in favor and 2 votes against. That's and obviously 1 abstention because Sue isn't here.
Well, we wouldn't count her as an
This
abstention.
doesn't go anything.
Okay, she's not an abstention, she's
Right.
not here.
Yeah.
Okay,
4-2-0.
all righty. So, we'll move on to the next one. So, I will make a motion to propose adoption or approval of Article 10 of the town warrant, which is the creation of, I guess, do I need to read the whole thing into the record? I don't do it, Shannon. You don't need me to read it to you. So this is the one that created a contingency fund for unanticipated expenses for $25,000 funded from the unexpended fund balance. This is something that's done pretty much every year as far as I know. So again, before I call a vote, does anyone want to make any comments or?
Do you need a second?
Yeah, that would be great. Thank you.
A second.
Thank you, Les. I don't know who's going to be chair next year,
I was
but
trying to get
I'm not
before
setting a very
Charlie.
high bar, am I? Not hearing anyone wanting to make a comment, I'll go ahead and call a vote. Again, we'll do a roll call vote because we have a member participating from outside the room. So I will vote in favor of recommending approval of Article 10? Charlie?
I am for Article 10.
Walter?
I support it.
Buzz?
4.
Les?
4.
Janet?
No,
Okay, so that's 5 votes in favor of recommending approval and 1 vote against. I'll make a motion to recommend approval of Article 11 of the warrant, which is for appropriating $20,000 to patriotic recreation and special events. This is basically the fireworks fund.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Charlie. Does anyone want to speak about the recommendation?
I'll be voting against it due to pollution concerns.
Okay, any other comments?
I'm gonna support it. We need more patriotism.
Okay.
And we need more show of it, and we need more proud show of it.
Again, the only thing I might add to that, just for the public's knowledge, is the select board has always chosen, or at least in my time, to put this on as a warrant article to let the voters decide if they want the fireworks show or not.
I strongly support the idea that this does not get buried in the budget, that it's better as a separate warrant article. I know it's, you know, it's not a budget buster at $20,000, but it's important that it has visibility and that town voters know what they're being heard, I guess is what I'll say. Janet, any comments?
I will vote for it. I would just like to add that I liked it better when we would go to the other towns and ask for donations. We know they're there. We know Hill, Alexandria, all surrounding towns tell us that they're there, but Bristol always foots the bill. So I would like to see if the committee could, and I would help decorate cans, and I wouldn't mind going to towns and talking about it. I think it's good for our town, but I think we shouldn't be bearing the brunt all the time.
I hear what
So
you're
yes,
saying.
I vote for it.
Okay, so I'm gonna call the roll call, but just as a last comment, I think that I appreciate that, Janet. My comment is I don't know whether it's the special events committee or the select board, but you should go to one of their meetings and make that pitch, because they're the ones that are gonna authorize you or somebody to go and do a fundraising. You agree with that, Les?
Yes, I would.
But just clarification, the community events committee does not do the fireworks.
I said or somebody, I don't know who it is, but
It's a fireworks
There's a
committee.
fireworks committee, it's mainly staff, but there is a fireworks committee, but the select board is actually the ultimate decision maker.
so when you get back in town, go to a select board meeting. I mean, assuming this passes, they'll do it, but you have until July to get the program set up, I think. So look, I'm gonna call a roll call because we have to do it this way. So we're voting on recommendation for Article 11. I will vote in favor of recommending approval of 11. Charlie?
I vote against.
Walter? Buzz?
4.
Les?
4.
Janet?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 5 in favor and 1 against. We'll move on to Article 12. Article 12, I'll make a motion to introduce a proposal to recommend approval of Article 12. This is the one for $87,000 odd to purchase and turn into parking the church parsonage across Pleasant Street from the building we're in at the moment.
And so it's a purchase of the parsonage and the parking lot that exists. And then it includes the cost to purchase, demolish, and limited landscape.
I got you. I think I'm getting tired. I'm getting lazy.
Sorry.
So, can I get a second?
Second. Oh, go ahead. Take Buzz.
Okay, you get the next one. So we have a motion for Article 12 and a second, and now we will discuss. I think I want to say something, but I don't know what I want to say. So does anyone else want to go, or should I? Go ahead.
I think it's an excellent guy. I mean, how can you, I don't like spending money at all, but I think this is something it's a buy. I think we have to do it.
Okay. I didn't know about this until last Tuesday, so it was something new for me, and I meant to spend some time over the weekend thinking about it some more, and I think I forgot. I didn't think about it. So I'm torn because it kind of makes sense to me. It would probably overall improve the downtown area and the town, but we went through the whole budget process, I would say desperate to find places to make cuts, and now have at the last moment another warrant article for $87,000. I kind of like don't want to spend the money, but I also heard I went to the last select board meeting, and I heard their comments, which is we think we did a good job negotiating them down, and this is not just the cost of the land, but now this is the cost of removing the building and repurposing the area, and it's not a lot of money for the benefit we're gonna get. And I think, I'm not a construction guy, I don't know much about paving and whatever, but I think it's probably true. It's probably not a bad spend of money, but if we're desperate for avoiding spending, what I'm struggling with is I kind of think that it's a nice to do, but not a must to do. And we talked about trying to use that as a criteria to decide what to spend money on. Other thoughts?
I agree with you, Paul. Why do we want to spend $80,000 when we're already over budget? Doesn't seem to bother anybody except Walter and I. So I'm on no on that.
I think it's balancing of how rare do you think this opportunity is to secure this parking for our downtown area. I think that's what it really comes down to.
So
if we pass it up, it's gone.
That's what I heard at the select board meeting, is that the land, it's expected that this parcel will be sold. And the town was given the first opportunity, but if the town doesn't buy it, it's not gonna sit there for a year and we'll have another chance next year. If we don't buy it, it'll go to somebody else and be used for something else. So this, I think you're right, Charlie, this is a one-time opportunity, which makes it a little more urgent to, if we're gonna do it, we have to do it now, because we can't do it later.
The only thing I would add is, we had an opportunity to purchase another property that would have given us parking at Old Town Hall. And the select board, again, we were in tough times with the budget and chose not to do that. And it's one of the times I've regretted that decision the most, is that we didn't take that opportunity.
Oh, you're talking about something that happened in the past, not this year.
Right, we chose not to do it because of funds. We chose not to put it on a warrant article even. And I've regretted that sense, that we should have at least put it on the warrant, so let the people decide.
Well, whether we recommend approval or not approval, the voters will decide,
Right,
because it is a
correct.
warrant article and we're not striking it from the
Correct.
warrant.
Yep.
So
I kind of want to abstain just because
that's exactly where I was going.
I'm not.
Come on, no.
I see a reason for it, and I see a reason people would be against it, and I kind of just want to see what people say. I don't have a good take for what the people of the town are going to say.
No, I don't.
That's not your job, though.
Right.
I know.
Okay.
It's
I'm gonna go the opposite direction now, because I get to go last. Janet, does anyone else want to say anything before I call the roll?
No.
Janet.
No, I guess, first of all, if we had known about it before, other people on the budget committee could walk the area, get a sense of it. It's coming out of the blue. And I think that the budget committee has been most patient with not getting reports on time because of a change in administration. And Bob leaving, that's a huge vacuum.
Yeah.
And I can't support it, so no, my vote is no.
So you made a speech there. I know I called the roll, but I'm going to just respond. So the other thing I will say, and I don't disagree with what you're saying, but the select board was negotiating with a property owner about a potential sale of property. That is always kept non-public. That doesn't get shared until the two parties enter into a sale agreement, because while they're negotiating, if it becomes public, it can change the negotiations. So I agree with you.
I disagree with that. I disagree with that. When the town bought the Smith property, it was known. And it was an open eye, there's no doubt, but I disagree with that.
Okay.
Nothing is private in Bristol.
Okay.
So I don't go with that at all.
Alrighty. Thank you.
Can I just clarify on the Smith property, there were things that were not shared in the public until there was actual purchase and sales.
Okay.
Once the purchase and sales was signed, then everything becomes public.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we continued with discussion. I just want to be clear. If you want to say something else, speak up, otherwise I'm going to call the roll. So let's do it again. Janet, for or against? I already know the answer, but we're doing roll call. Janet?
Yep, no.
Okay. Les?
Yes.
Buzz?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Charlie?
Abstain.
I will vote yes. So we have 4 in favor, 1 against, and 1 abstain.
I'm sorry.
It would have mattered either. I didn't realize that we were also providing entertainment, so I'm glad that.
Whatever we can do.
All right, so now we'll move on to Article 13. I make a motion to recommend approval of Article 13, which is to raise and appropriate $405,000 to be added to 6 different capital reserve funds. I don't think I have to go into the detail of how much goes into each of the 6 funds. Can I get a second? That's what no, you did the last one. Walter wanted to do one. You don't want to do this one. Buzz seconds it.
I was doing it because I wanted the capital improvement.
Yeah.
I'll give you the next one, Walter, assuming you want it. That's the
That's the
next
next
one.
one.
So we have a motion by Paul, seconded by Buzz, to recommend approval of Article 13. Again, anyone want to make a comment or try to sway other people? Not hearing any. I'll call a roll. So, Janet, Article 13?
No.
Okay. Les?
Yes.
Buzz?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Charlie?
Yes.
And Paul is a yes. So we have 5 in favor, 1 against. Okay, we do not get to vote on Article 14, 15, 16, or 16 is just other business, or the petition warrant article. So we are done with the warrant, or our part of it. And if you are interested in more details on the warrant, I suggest you show up on next week, Thursday, to the select board meeting where they will finalize the warrant and vote on our budget. Or vote on their recommendation for our budget, I should say. So revenues is next, I believe. So we have a, thank you for coming. We have a proposed estimated revenues for 2024. Let's see, I need to start with a motion. So I will make a motion, I don't have it open in front of me. I'll make a motion to, is it accept or approve? Are we accepting these or approving these?
They have to vote on them. I just realized that the percent is off that screen too for some reason.
What's that?
Your percents are missing, but if you don't change anything, it's the same percent. So, I don't know, what have you done in the past? I think you
We probably approve, I don't know.
I believe you approve. From a minute-taking perspective, it's
Okay, so I
approved.
make a motion to approve the revenue estimate for 2024 as currently presented. Because I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not gonna say a number.
$3,536,910.87.
Okay, what Les just said came out of my mouth. You wanna second that?
I'll second.
Seconded by Walter. We now have a motion and a second.
Sorry. I don't have feeling in that hand anyhow.
So, does anyone wanna make comments about the projected revenues for 2024?
I just wanted to comment from questions that came from you reviewing them. We did, we corrected income from metals and income from aluminum.
Yeah.
Those are corrected, and the cardboard was confirmed as part of the NRA recycling.
Gotcha. Right, and the police grant was added in that was missing, and what, anything else that happened. I will try to be quick, but I will say what I have said in the past, is that my understanding is that we are required by, I assume it's a state law, but we are required for some reason to approve these revenues. The revenue estimate at this time is reasonable but conservative and subject to change. And I don't personally spend a lot of time analyzing this or worrying about it, because the revenues will be used in calculating the tax rate by the select board in the fall, and at that time they will use updated numbers that will be more accurate. So we know these numbers are going to change, and we know the select board is going to use an updated, better copy of these. So I would argue that if we weren't required to approve them, I would not bother with them. But we are required to approve them, so we will. So does anyone else want to make a comment about revenues? Okay, we do this by roll call. I will call myself first, and I will vote for approving these this revenue estimate. Charlie?
4.
4. Buzz?
4.
Buzz? Janet?
Yes.
Okay,
4.
6-0. The budget estimate, the revenue estimate is approved by the budget committee. I think we are done with voting on warrants and budgets and revenues. So the next item on our agenda is consideration of the minutes from our last meeting, which was Tuesday, January 30th. So you've all received the minutes. Why don't we start with grammatical and other changes?
I couldn't print them, so you'll have to bear with me. I'm reading them off the screen to find the notes I made. But I think I'm on page 3. It's the, let's see. It's the paragraph, the large paragraph on the page that begins, Mr. Reagan inquired. Okay, it's the third sentence in that paragraph that begins at the end of the third line. She added that any change to the veterans tax credit will also change the all veterans question mark. All veterans line, all veterans credit. It's got to be something.
The all veterans.
The all veterans tax credit.
It's the all veterans tax credit.
Okay,
So
it should say tax credit then.
Yep, you're right.
And then in the discussion on revenue section, again, bear with me.
Copy of the minutes.
do you have a copy of Sue's?
So
they weren't included in the folder because I didn't get them back until the meeting invitation. It's my fault, Walter.
Okay, that's all right.
Sorry.
Okay, it's the second sentence. It says Ms. Goodwin noted the police department grant for radar equipment along with encumbrances have not been added to the revenues until later in the week. There's a
This is
Will
a
not
running.
be added. Okay.
and oops. In the discussion, review, and approval, let's see. First paragraph, second line. Oh, okay.
This one I thought was amusing. Mrs. Sedana felt that the budget section should require more details to inform others that they do not watch the recorded meetings. So we're informing others not to watch this is like, eat, shoots, and leaves.
So how about that, Mrs. Sedano?
It's just strike the word they, that inform others that do not watch the recorded meetings.
But you should also say the minutes for the budget section should require more details to inform others.
That do not watch.
That
Right,
do
that do
not,
not watch.
there you go, got it,
Instead of, just take out the word they.
got it.
And,
Yeah, that's not what we want to instruct them to do.
and that's it. And since Shannon is in attendance, I will tell her on the record that despite all this nonsense that we go through every week, I think you do an excellent job.
Okay.
And I appreciate the fact that you can point out the grammatical errors. So you don't change any of the material or content, so I can take a few grammatical errors.
We did add to note you're approved at the top. Is that what you were thinking of? So above at the top, very top of the minutes, it says approved draft, and then right now it says draft minutes. But once you vote on these, it'll be changed to say the date today.
I thought we talked about putting it at the end,
So at
not the beginning.
Okay.
But what do you want to?
I just put it there because that's where we put it with the other boards, but I can
Oh.
change it and put it down at the end. Either way.
Your call.
I would keep it consistent.
I don't have a preference and I like consistency, so I'd leave it where it is.
So we are adding it to the select board as well. It was something we thought was a good tool to put in for the select board meetings too,
Yep.
so.
So we know when they're approved, and if we go back and
Right.
modify them and reapprove them, that would be noted also.
It would be, yes.
Okay. Any other comments on the meeting minutes? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. So we're voting to approve the minutes as amended. I vote yes. Charlie?
How about yes?
Yes.
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 Janet?
Abstain.
Okay, so we have 5 in favor and 0 opposed and 1 abstained. Let me go back to the agenda. So, correspondence. I should probably keep a correspondence log. Now I have to think back to what I got. I get emails all the time, and most of them are not earth-shattering. So off the top of my head, I don't think I have any correspondence that I need to share. Anyone else have any correspondence that should be shared with the committee? Not hearing any, we will move on to comments. So start with the select board. Any comments from our select board member?
No, it's been a pleasure working with all of you on this.
You made it through another year. Thank you for your assistance.
Yep, thank you.
Buzz, any comments?
Nope.
Walter, any comments? Charlie?
Although I'm not going to be on the board, I think it is a good idea to have that planning meeting.
Yep.
In April that you had
That's
suggested.
definitely-
I think that's an excellent idea. I just want to reiterate that.
Okay. Janet, any comments you want to make?
Well, I just have a question.
Go ahead.
I have, Walter and I, certainly not together, separately, we came to the conclusion that we did not want to vote for the budget.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen that in the minutes. And I have mentioned it before, after our first announcement, which I didn't know Walter was going to, join me in my thought. I didn't understand that, but here and there, I don't see that in the minutes. I think the public would want to know that 2 people don't agree with the budget. Because 9 times out of 10, from what I've seen, the budget committee always agrees with the budget, except when John Sellers stopped it for $250,000. So, other than that, no, I don't have any complaints. But I would like to see it in the minutes.
So
I think it's a fair thing.
I don't think it's unfair, so I want to let the rest of the committee know that at one point you did send me an email and say you had voted against the budget and it wasn't in the minutes. And I responded saying that we weren't holding a vote, that you expressed a comment that you were intending to vote against the budget, but we hadn't voted. But I didn't follow up on that, so I apologize. If you want that in the minutes, when we go through the minute review, I would have expected, or I would have hoped you would have brought it up. If it's important enough to you, you could propose that at the next meeting, we go back and reopen old minutes and revise them to put those in. I will point out that
By then, the town meeting has come and gone, and, you know, whatever. I just am very disappointed.
Okay.
I have never seen that before, and trust me, I've been in finance for over 40 years. I've never seen that.
Well, it was certain, I don't think it was anyone, I know it was not my intent to hide your vote or your intention. I don't know how many members of the...
Well, never mind, I'm fine.
Okay.
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you. The only other comment that I wanted to make is that, just to let you know, I talked to Christina and I said, this year's budget has pennies in it. And in previous years, we got spreadsheets from Bob. And I think about it, I think that all of the numbers had pennies in them, but he sent us reports with only dollars. And I pointed out to Chris, I just pointed it out probably last week. I said it's late enough in the cycle. I don't want to make a change now, but I want to make a comment that for next year, I want to see reports with just dollars. I do not want to see 37 cents. I think it makes the
No, I don't either. No,
it makes
no,
the
I've
sheets
never
much
seen that.
busier,
I've never seen
and it
that.
doesn't really impact anything. So I just wanted to share that with you. If you disagree, you should speak up because I'm going to push for that for next year.
The only place you would see cents is in the bottom line number. You just wouldn't see in individual lines.
But if we round up to the next higher dollar, you don't even show it in the bottom line.
Well,
If we give the town a couple extra
Excel
cents.
documents only, what they did was the cents were hidden, and it rounded it up and down in the Excel document. The cents were behind the scenes though, in there.
I just think so I just wanted to share that with you, that as chair, I have a little more influence, and I've told Christina that I want to do that, and whether I'm chair next year or not, I will push for it. I just want to make sure you're aware, because if you disagree with me, I want you to have an opportunity to speak up. That's why I'm saying it.
I will bring it to the budget committee, the select board. The select board ultimately will decide the formatting.
Okay.
But I do think it's a wise suggestion, and that we should be able to ask them to consider that in the software. It was just this year's software.
We had enough.
Again,
we had enough software headaches. That wasn't
Yes.
the top of the list. But moving forward, I think it would make my life easier. So I'm asking for it.
Oh, it would make mine too.
All right. So I think that's it for comments. Staff comments. Staff comments.
Sorry, me?
I have a
No.
question for,
Okay. Go ahead, Joanne. Go ahead, Janet.
I'm sorry, there's a disconnect, I apologize.
Mhm.
I was on the website, do we know who's running for what positions when we go to vote on, the Tuesday before the town meeting?
They will be posted. We haven't gotten them from Rama yet. Rama has them.
So I can, Janet.
Yeah, I couldn't find them, Christine, I
So-
couldn't find them.
So Janet, I don't think they're available on the website yet. I think
They will be.
I was going to say, just I know for our committee, I can tell you that we have 2 3-year terms available, and we have one candidate who is Janet, and we have one. Actually, I didn't check. You're going for the 2-year term, right?
Right.
We have 1 2-year term, and Buzz is our candidate for that. So we have 3 positions on the ballot and 2 openings. I will tell you that I know that the library is going to run a candidates forum again this year. They're actually going to run it in the historic town hall because they want more room. They thought that their meeting room was too crowded last year. And I know the date, but I don't have it off the top.
March 2nd.
March 2nd, Saturday afternoon, March 2nd. I know that one of the library trustees was in today to talk to Rama to get a list of candidates so that they can send out the invitations to the candidates to come to the candidates forum. So I know that information is being compiled. I know that Rama has it. I don't believe she's posted it publicly yet, but I'm pretty sure it will be available soon. I'm sure it will be available before the election itself. So that's what I can tell you, Janet.
We will post it to the 2024 elections and town meeting information on the website. I'm sure Raymond will also post it on the town clerk's tax collector's page, but we're trying to put everything that you need to know about elections and town meeting and it onto that one page, and it's right on the home page.
Okay.
And it's linked to your budget committee page.
Right. Anything else, Janet?
Nope.
Okay. Christina?
It's cold down here, I can tell you that.
Oh,
That's a
it's
break.
so cold.
Yeah.
So in addition to Christina, also Shannon, if you have any comments, your staff, either of you have any comments?
It was great to conclude my 5th season as minute taker for the budget committee.
Thank you.
And I'm very happy with the format that we had this year and everything else going forward. It made it easier for minutes and being able to dilute on my details, which I heard went well this year. So yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for all your help.
I'm good with that.
Did you have anything you wanted to say in your comment section? No.
I don't think so. Oh, yes, the MS 737. I entered all the numbers into the system while we were in the public hearing, but I have to go back and just enter the warrant article information into that. So I hope to have that ready by the end of the week for your signature. But I will email everyone and let you know once it, I'll try, especially Walter, to get it ready by the end of the week for you. But
I'll be going in the hospital Monday.
yeah, so I will do my best to get it done by the end of the week. I've entered it into the Department of Revenue. I just have to go in and fix a couple of things. And I should be able to print that report for everybody to sign.
If I can't get back, please put my signature in it. I give you the authorization to do so. Put it in.
Put that in the minutes, no kidding. We all heard it here.
Yeah, we heard it.
But I will try my best to make sure it's ready by Friday.
Okay.
Then we'll be thinking of you.
Yeah, it needs 4 of us to be official.
Yeah.
Quorum.
Okay, so that's all the minutes. I think that's it for all of our items. So I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn. Walter makes a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Seconded by Charlie. Do I need to do roll call for that too?
I think it's,
Yep. Janet, you vote to adjourn, right?
Yep.
I think she's gone already. Unanimous, we're adjourned.